Now, the percentage of people who shop online has tipped over the 50% mark for the first time in Australia. This is according to a new report out today from Roy Morgan Research. It's looked at the shopping habits of 50,000 consumers over the last decade.
That's a pretty big survey, and unsurprisingly, it's found online retailers only growing in popularity in Australia. The ABC's Consumer Affairs reporter Amy Bainbridge joins us now. Amy, good morning.
Good morning, Michael and Virginia. Yes, Roy Morgan Research is releasing its State of the Nation report this morning at a breakfast briefing here in the CBD of Melbourne. And as you mentioned, it does point to some really interesting trends and a big shift to the online retail space for consumers right across Australia. And to tell us more this morning, Michele Levine, who's the CEO of Roy Morgan Research, joins me now. Michele, thanks so much. Look, what trends are we seeing in this area for online retail?
Look, I think the major point we're seeing is that online shopping's become mainstream. So that we've now got, in the last quarter, 50% or over 50% of Australians have actually bought something online in the last 3 months. So it's mainstream.
What are people buying and who is doing the majority of the buying?
Look, I think the first thing is it's about $24 billion being spent in online shopping. So there's big numbers. Probably the biggest thing that we're seeing spending on, about a quarter of that, is actually on travel. But then people are spending a lot of money on entertainment, electronic goods, fashion, and even food and beverages.
And what area is sort of the biggest growth? We hear a lot about the shift to online retail in terms of fashion and how that's hurting retailers, the bricks and mortar retailers as we call it. What are we seeing in that area?
Well, one of the biggest areas, and surprising to me, is that women's fashion's gone up 66%. So I think what we're seeing across the board is that people are trying online shopping and they're finding that it's okay, and we're seeing it happening across all areas, and it's across all areas, all types of things that people are buying, and all types of people are starting to dip their toe in and start spending money online rather than going to the shops.
What about smartphones? What are people using smartphones, or is it more, your traditional kind of, well, not traditional, but your internet on a desktop computer?
Look, I think at the moment it's mostly your internet on your computer, but we're seeing smartphones are on the increase. So about half the population now has a smartphone, and what that means is that people are actually doing all the things that they used to do on their computer on their smartphone. So smartphones just accelerating the growth of all of those activities. I think we've got about 6.6% of people with a smartphone have actually bought anything online in the last little while, but it's not going to be too far before they do, because they're researching, they're checking prices, they're doing all of those things on their smartphones, and that's sort of the precursor to actually spending money.
What do we know about consumer confidence as a whole, given it is an election year? What are your figures showing?
Well, consumer confidence is 113.4, so consumer confidence has taken a dive after we saw Ford decided to close, but at 113.4 it's still over that magical 100 number. So we've still got more consumers feeling optimistic or confident than feeling negative or pessimistic.
And clearly that is, in a way, reflected in the amount of that people are spending online. It's not like people aren't spending, are they?
Yes. Look, we are seeing people still spending, and there are still levels of confidence. And that's what we've always said, is that when it comes to things like retail, the confident people are going to spend. They're going to actually do things, they're going to spend money and engage in all sorts of things. And at the moment, there's more confident than unconfident.
That does seem to be at odds, though, with what the retailers have been saying about, generally flat sector at the moment, doesn't it?
Well, I think what the retailers are feeling, there's probably highs and lows for the retailers, and we've seen in our business confidence, where we survey retailers across the board and all businesses across the board, that typically over the last few years, retailers have actually been much lower in their confidence about how their sector's going, about how their business is going. But what you've got apparently is that the larger businesses are actually doing better than the smaller businesses. And this possibly is a reflection of the fact that the larger businesses have actually recognised the need to go online, and they're having that sort of, total experience that people can actually buy online, or they can come into the store, whatever works for them.
Just finally, there's a lot of polling, of course, going out in an election year, and different organisations doing political polling. I can't finish this without asking you about what Roy Morgan Research is showing about voting intentions for later this year.
Look, the first thing is the only poll that counts is the one that happens on election day, and there's still a long time to go. The Morgan poll has Labor at 45 to the LNP at 55. but that's on a two-party preferred basis. If you look at the individual parties, there's about 23% of people that are not voting at the moment for a major party. You know, you've got 3% saying they'd vote for the Clive Palmer party, you've got 1% voting Bob Katter, you've got the Greens, and then you've got others. So there's wriggle room there, and I don't think it makes sense to ever call an election this far out.
Michele Levine, thanks so much.
My pleasure.
Michael and Virginia, there you have it. Some interesting figures both on consumer confidence but also on voting intentions come September at this stage.
At this stage. Thanks very much, Amy Bainbridge, there with
fascinating.
Michele Levine.